If you are past 60 and there is a wall that finds you every single afternoon, somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock, when your thoughts slow and your eyes go heavy and you feel like someone turned down a dial somewhere inside you, I need you to stay with me right here because that wall is not your age. It is not how much you ate. There is something specific happening inside your blood after every meal that gets measurably worse with every passing year after 60. And I am going to show you exactly what it is and what to do about it. Here is what today covers. I am going to show you the hidden biological mechanism driving that afternoon crash and why it deepens the older you get. I am going to walk you through 3 forces making it worse inside your body right now. I'm going to give you a daily practice rooted in 4 generations of plant medicine tradition that works on this problem from 2 directions at once. And I am going to share the single piece that determines whether everything else actually works, the one most women over 60 are missing entirely. That last piece is the most important thing I will tell you today. Stay with me through the end. My name is Camilla Hayes. For 35 years, I have sat with women past 60 in the foothills of rural South Carolina, drawing on plant medicine passed down through 4 generations of Gullah healers in my family. I have sat with more than 12,000 women who came to me carrying exactly this complaint, and I want to tell you something they all shared before they found their way through it. Every single one of them had been told this was just aging, that getting older meant losing the afternoon, that the fog and the fatigue and the craving for something sweet after a full meal were simply what the body does past 60. That is not true. The body does not simply decide to collapse every afternoon without cause. There is a cause. It has a name. And once you understand it, the path through it is not complicated. I am not a physician, and nothing I share here replaces the care of your doctor. But what I have learned from the lineage and from 35 years of watching what actually moves the needle for women past 60, that is worth every minute you spend here. Let me tell you what the body is actually doing. After 60, the cells in your muscles and liver begin losing their sensitivity to insulin. Insulin is the hormone your body sends after every meal to move sugar from your bloodstream into the cells, where it becomes fuel for every thought and movement and word you want to hold through the afternoon. Think of insulin as a delivery driver bringing energy to every room of a house. When the locks on those rooms work normally, the driver delivers, the sugar moves into the cells, and you feel clear and steady through the afternoon. But when those locks begin to stick, the driver does not give up. The body sends more insulin, a harder knock at a door that has grown harder to open. That flooding of extra insulin drives your blood sugar sharply upward after the meal and then drops it again too fast. And that drop is what places you in the chair at 2 o'clock, eyes heavy, thoughts scattered, fighting to stay present in your own afternoon. The medical name for this pattern is postprandial insulin dysregulation. The women who sat at my grandmother's table 4 generations before any clinical trial was published called it the belly not answering anymore. Now, here is where the stakes get real because this is the part nobody tells you. In the early stages, the afternoon crash is uncomfortable but manageable. You lose an hour, you miss part of a conversation, you drift through a card game and hope no one notices. But as the pattern deepens over months and years, the cascade gets wider. The brain fog starts arriving before the afternoon. It spills into the morning hours, arriving at 10 o'clock when you used to be sharpest. Sleep quality deteriorates because the same biological misfire that creates the afternoon crash also disrupts the hormones governing deep sleep. You lie awake at 3 in the morning for no clear reason and cannot explain why. Then the cravings come. Something sweet, something starchy within an hour of a full meal. And when you give into them, the whole cycle resets and intensifies and starts again. The women who come to me farthest into this pattern describe something that stays with me every time I hear it. They say they feel like they are disappearing from their own lives, present in body, absent in the hours that matter most. That experience is real, and it does not have to continue. 3 forces are quietly making this pattern worse in the vast majority of women I sit with. Most know about the first 2. Almost nobody knows about the third. The first force is stillness after meals. Once the kitchen is clean, most of us move somewhere comfortable and still. That stillness, which feels like well-deserved rest, is the exact window when the muscles need movement most. After eating, your muscle tissue is responsible for pulling a meaningful portion of blood glucose out of circulation and putting it to use. A 10-minute walk, even an easy, unhurried one through the rooms of your house, supports that process considerably. Research on older adults suggests this simple movement can reduce the post-meal blood sugar spike by as much as a third compared to remaining seated. My grandmother never needed a study. She simply never sat still after eating. She washed the dishes, checked the garden, moved through the house because that was what her mother had done before her and her mother before that. Without that movement, the sugar sits higher in the blood for longer before the drop arrives. The wall comes faster and hits harder. But stillness after meals is only the first force. The second one is hiding in plain sight on the plate itself. When starch arrives at the stomach without fiber or fat beside it, the insulin response has to work in emergency mode. White rice with nothing green beside it hits the bloodstream very differently than the same rice with leafy greens and a little good fat alongside. The Gullah cooking tradition I grew up in never built a plate without something green and something with good fat beside the starch. That was not coincidence. That was 4 generations of observation about how a body handles food. A small amount of good fat at the start of a meal slows the rate at which starch reaches the blood. Leafy greens provide the fiber buffer that softens the curve. Take either one out, and the spike arrives earlier and the drop comes harder. But here is the third force, the one that surprises almost every woman I work with, even the most careful ones. This is the one that was keeping my most disciplined clients stuck no matter what else they changed. I want to tell you about Dorothy. She is 68 years old, a retired school teacher from Savannah, Georgia. By the time she came to see me, she had already cut the sugar, the white bread, the late night eating. She was walking after dinner every single night. She was careful with her portions in a way that most people are not. By every conventional standard, she was doing everything right. But the 2 o'clock wall hit her every single day without exception. What had been overlooked entirely was the condition of her gut terrain, not what she was eating, not how much she was eating. The community of bacteria living inside her digestive tract, the ones responsible for helping her cells hear insulin signal clearly, had been quietly declining for years. Here is the number that stopped me when I first encountered it in the research. After 60, the average woman has lost more than half of her gut bacterial diversity compared to what she carried at 40. More than half. Gone. And those bacteria are not passengers. They produce specific compounds that directly support how sensitive your cells are to insulin. They calm the inflammation building up around those cells. They support the hormone pathways governing afternoon energy and nighttime sleep quality. When that community thins, insulin resistance deepens, the afternoon crash gets worse, and it keeps getting worse regardless of how clean the plate looks or how faithfully someone is walking after dinner. Dorothy and I rebuilt her gut terrain with fermented preparations and the bitter herbs from my family's tradition. Her afternoon energy improved noticeably within 6 weeks. But here is the honest part. She did not get fully there until we added the specific product I am going to tell you about in a moment, because the foundation was right, but it was not yet complete. And understanding why requires understanding what most women get wrong when they try to fix the gut. Most women who try to address the gut terrain reach for a probiotic. They buy a reputable bottle, they take it faithfully for 30 days, and nothing much changes. The reason is this: probiotics are seeds, but seeds cannot grow without living soil beneath them. The soil is prebiotic fiber, the food that allows bacteria to survive and thrive once they arrive. And even living soil with healthy seeds still does not finish the picture. The actual healing compounds the bacteria produce when they are working correctly, what researchers now call postbiotics, are what signal your cells to become more sensitive to insulin again. Those postbiotic compounds are the fruit. You need all three layers: the seed, the soil, and the conditions to produce the fruit. Probiotics without prebiotics and postbiotics is like planting seeds in dry sand and expecting a harvest by morning. If what I have shared with you today has been useful, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. I bring this kind of work here every week, and subscribing means you will not miss what is coming next. Now, I want to be honest with you about my own search, because I did not arrive at what I am about to recommend quickly, and I would not share it if I had not watched it work inside my practice for 3 years before I felt confident recommending it. For the first 25 years of my work, I used only the preparations my family had always kept: kefir, raw apple cider vinegar, fermented greens, dandelion root tea before meals. And they helped. They genuinely helped. But I kept watching women get 70% of the way home and then plateau. Still fighting the afternoon drag, still waking at 3 in the morning with no reason they could name, still losing words in the middle of sentences by 2 o'clock. The foundation was solid, but something was missing, and I spent years trying to name it. About 3 years ago, I began reviewing the clinical data on a formulation that combined all three layers in a single daily preparation. The probiotic component includes lactospore, a clinically studied strain with documented effects on blood sugar regulation in adults. Alongside it is postbiotics LM1004, a postbiotic compound that supports cellular insulin sensitivity directly, and beneath both, a prebiotic fiber substrate to feed the whole system. This is the formulation inside BoochBod, and it is delivered as a kombucha gummy, not a capsule, which matters more than most people realize. I had watched women in my practice struggle with supplement fatigue for decades. They start, they stop, they forget, they get tired of swallowing one more thing when they are already managing 2 or 3 other medications. The gummy form changes that. My clients actually take it every day because it does not feel like a burden. And when they take it consistently alongside the practices I am about to walk you through, the results are different in kind, not just in degree. That is the distinction I could not explain before. Same foundation, same herbs, same commitment, but with all three gut layers working together, the women who had been stuck at 70% started getting all the way home. The link for BoochBod is in the description below. It comes with a 60-day guarantee, so you can try it without any risk. Please speak with your doctor before adding anything new to your supplement routine. That conversation matters, and any doctor worth their appointment time will want to know what you are taking. Now, let me give you the daily practice that brings everything together. The first part is the after meal walk. Within 15 minutes of finishing your midday meal, you take a 10-minute walk. Not a workout, not a power walk. Just easy, unhurried movement through your neighborhood or through the rooms of your house. Your muscles begin drawing glucose out of the bloodstream the moment you start moving. And that 10-minute window after eating is one of the most effective moments in the entire day to support blood sugar balance. My grandmother never needed a study to tell her this. She simply did not sit still after eating. She washed the dishes, she checked the garden, she moved through the house the way her mother had before her. The lineage understood what it was doing long before anyone measured it in a laboratory. The second part is a bitter preparation before your largest meal. My grandmother kept dried dandelion root on her windowsill and steeped half a cup every single day before she sat down to eat. Dandelion root supports bile production in the liver, which supports fat digestion, which buffers the rate at which glucose enters the blood after the meal arrives. The Gullah herbal tradition has used bitter preparations before meals for generations. Researchers studying bile metabolism and insulin sensitivity are now confirming what those kitchen practices were accomplishing all along. A strong cup of dandelion root tea before lunch, a pile of arugula alongside the main dish, warm water with raw apple cider vinegar before you sit down. Any of these will do the work. The walk moves glucose out after the meal. The bitter slows the spike before the meal. And the gut terrain, rebuilt with all three layers working together, is the foundation that makes both of those practices multiply in their effect rather than simply add. That is the difference between getting 70% of the way home and getting all the way there. Let me tell you about Gloria. She is 71 years old, a former bookkeeper from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She came to see me barely making it through her afternoons, and her doctor had noted elevated fasting glucose at her last appointment and said they would be watching it carefully. Gloria started the after meal walk in her first week. She added the dandelion root tea before lunch, and at the 2-week mark, after talking it through with her doctor and getting the clearance she needed, she added BoochBod to her daily routine. At her 3-month follow-up appointment, her fasting glucose had come down 14%. Her afternoon slump went from daily to 2 or 3 times a week by the end of the first month. By month 3, she told me something I have since heard in different words from dozens of women. Camilla, I have not napped against my will since spring. I feel like I am back. The combination was the point. The walk alone helped. The dandelion root tea alone helped. But it was the gut terrain support completing all 3 layers, the seed and the soil and the fruit all working together, that pushed her results from partial to complete. That is the pattern I keep watching. The foundation matters, but the final piece is what closes the gap. Let me leave you with 3 principles that separate the women who get their afternoons back from those who stay stuck. The first principle: timing beats perfection. A moderate meal followed by a 10-minute walk will do more for your afternoon energy than a perfect plate eaten at a desk followed by an hour in a chair. The move after eating habit is the engine. Consistency is what makes the engine run. If you take nothing else from today, take this one. The second principle: fat at the start before the starch. A spoonful of olive oil before the main dish arrives, a few walnuts alongside the plate, half an avocado with a squeeze of lemon. Good fat at the beginning of a meal slows the rate at which starch reaches the blood. My clients who build their plates this way describe a noticeably softer energy curve across the afternoon, fewer of those sharp drops by 2 o'clock. The fat is not indulgence, it is timing. The third principle: bitter before the sweet. Before any meal with starch on the plate, bring the bitter preparation first. Dandelion root tea, arugula on the plate before the main course arrives, warm water with raw apple cider vinegar. The bitter compounds prime the digestive system and buffer the glucose curve before the food even arrives. This practice is older than any published trial. The trials are arriving at the same conclusion the lineage reached generations ago. And 3 mistakes I see week after week among women trying to address the afternoon crash. The first: waiting until the crash arrives to respond. Reaching for coffee or something sweet when the fog rolls in restarts the cycle and pushes the problem forward by 2 more hours. The walk and the bitter preparation have to come before the drop, not during it. Build them into the routine before the clock reaches 2. The second: removing the fat buffer because the plate already looks healthy enough. Many of the women I work with were taught to be cautious around fat for decades, and that caution still shapes how they eat. But the fat is doing structural work in the meal. It is timing the glucose. Take it out and the spike arrives earlier, the drop comes harder, and the wall finds you sooner. The third: doing the walk 2 or 3 times a week and expecting a lasting shift. The body builds new rhythms through daily repetition. 7 days of an easy 10-minute walk beats 2 days of a determined one every single time. Show the body the pattern every day, and eventually the body begins to hold it. My friend, let me say one final thing. The afternoons you are losing to that fog are the hours that belong to you. The hour after lunch when a grandchild climbs into your lap and you want to be all the way present in that moment, not half asleep in your own chair. The card game you want to stay sharp for all the way through, not drift away from by the third hand. The evening walk you want to take under your own power at your own pace without needing anyone to slow down beside you. It is never too late. The body I have watched turn in a new direction at 70, at 75, at 80 does not need your permission to begin. Every 10-minute walk after lunch, every cup of dandelion root tea poured before you sit down to eat, every day you support the gut terrain with all 3 layers working together. That is you at the wheel. That has always been true, and it is still true right now. If you are ready to give your body the complete gut support that finishes what the foundation begins, the BoochBod link is in the description below. 60-day guarantee, no risk, your afternoon's back. I am Camilla Hayes. Take good care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.